Okay. Okay. So now we'll start recording. This is an experiment for both of us. It's my first time doing a recorded Zoom call, but I'm Ann Trinca, and I am in conversation with Caetlynn Booth. We are both co-curators of the virtual exhibition called Wild Tangents. And Caetlynn and I have actually known each other for many, many years, almost 20 years, I think.
I think so.
And yeah, we met in the small town of Napa. And then Caetlynn, who is also an artist, has gone on to graduate school in Davis and fellowship in Berlin and living there for a while. And now you're in New York.
Very
So we're
true.
on opposite coasts. I am a curator and a photographer. And, you know, we wanted to both kind of explore the idea of a virtual exhibition when the pandemic started and galleries closed down and artists were out of work or opportunities were lost. So we talked about it and found a theme and put together this show. It's hosted on both of our websites, as you can see here, at caetlynbooth.com and anntrinca.com. And it's also hosted at Perch Art House, which is another thing I started during the pandemic, which is an online art boutique featuring some of the artists that I work with as a consultant. So let's talk about the idea for the show. We had talked a little bit about your experience during the pandemic as an artist. And you said that you were finding yourself exploring new ideas and going on these tangents that came up to you during the quiet studio time during quarantine. Maybe can you talk about that experience during the first few months of quarantine and how you found your
Sure.
work changing?
Yeah, it was just it was there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of working remotely with my day job. And so I was in the studio and I just found that, I had this not desperation, but I felt this kind of imperative to kind of reach outside my comfort zone and kind of try and find things and bring them in to what I was making that, might have been in my past studio life a wild tangent that I would kind of think about and kind of let go. I was finding myself pursuing those things instead of kind of just focusing on the known and what I was already making, but jumping to these other kind of thoughts or ways of working that came to me that were unexpected and kind of seemed outside of what I typically would pursue. And I noticed this as well with many other artists on Instagram that I was watching, and also, through emails that they were sending, and seeing this work remotely, and how it had affected their studio practices. And so I just felt like it was the moment to put together a show and support the work of other artists and explore this idea, this kind of common thread between my work and these other artists' work, and really also just see the work in person, since we did an in-person version here in New York. But it was really just I wanted to delve deeper into that idea and how other artists were also using kind of the unknown or these tangents that they typically wouldn't have pursued.
Yeah, I think for a lot of artists, the ones that I work with as well, it was kind of a timeout. Looking back over the whole year, you didn't get to do what you were expecting to do, but you had this kind of bubble around you to be in the studio and be like, oh, it's okay, maybe to go down this different path right now because everything's uncertain. And
Yes.
yeah, for me with my photography, I really started looking at the natural world more, and a lot of people also that I follow on Instagram too, I was noticing that in their work that, people were saying things like, there seem to be more birds around, or there's just more flowers this year or something. And so I started just going on walks with my camera and taking pictures of just the abundance that I was interpreting as a message, from nature, like, slow down, everybody. This is an unusual circumstance. And so yeah, so when we talked about putting the show together, you were looking at artists who were maybe shifting their practice a little bit and following new ideas. And then I was going to focus on this idea of turning back towards nature, and following a tangent off into the wild. So we curated 2 separate shows with different artists. Yours has like 11 artists and mine has 13. And you had the ability to actually put it up in a space. So here is a picture of the installation at Reservoir Studios. Do you want to tell me a little bit about Reservoir and how this process worked?
Yes, Reservoir is it's a building that houses 11 artist studios, and this is the front gallery area. And I have my studio here in the building, so it's very easy for me to show people this exhibition one at a time or two at a time. And basically, most of the artists just have one. Some artists have 2 pieces in the show. And in a way, it was self-curated because many of the artists submitted 1 or 2 images, and those were the ones that ended up being in the show. And I was struck by how many kind of crossovers there were between, palettes and compositional elements, triangles and celestial bodies and snakes, and there's just all these like natural kind of parallels between the works. And so they've
Yeah,
been
is it the
installed.
same way, like just selecting the artists and then letting them suggest the pieces that they felt kind of represented the theme?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's how I invited artists to participate. I wanted them to kind of identify which works they felt were their wild tangents.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the experience of in finding those artists and curating them. But first, we're going to just both talk about 1 or 2 artists in our prospective shows each, and then invite viewers to go to the website to see all the rest of the show. But let's see, we're going to start out with Carrie.
Carrie,
Yeah.
yes. Carrie's been working with gravestones as a subject for a couple years now. But both of these paintings were made during the pandemic. And
I love these.
I thought that his work just really spoke to the current moment and fits the theme perfectly. And the painting on the left, the pile of gravestones, it's the painting is called Sculpture, and I find that really funny. And he just has this like playful quality to his work anyway. But the fact that there's the sledgehammer in the lower right hand corner of this painting, and it's like this monolith or this almost like this giant sculpture to a memory of well, I see it as confronting mortality and having a sledgehammer handy. And just I really love that quality, that conceptual aspect of it. And several people who have seen the show in person have noted that it really reminds them of Philip Guston's, how his paintings look, and kind of that quirky kind of humor that resides there. And then the one on the right, I also see as almost cheerful. It's this kind of patchwork kaleidoscope of tombstones or gravestones. And I think that during these kind of, especially during like the really tragic and dark times of this past year, 2020, it just it reminds you to try and look at it with humor. where you can find it. And you know, we all die. I don't know how funny that is, but
Well, yeah, too many people were taken this year, but I also noticed on the right, after the events of last week with the
oh
raid on the Capitol, the black thing in the center looks like the Washington Monument to me now, and so they
yeah,
take on new
the
meanings,
obelisk.
yeah,
Mhm.
as the year goes on, and the weird events continue. These paintings take on new meaning.
Definitely, and definitely there's that topsy turvy quality to that painting, which I think really speaks to um, you know, everything that's been going on lately.
Yeah, definitely sums up the experience of this year. So, do you want to talk about the next artist,
Sure.
Lumen?
Lumen, yes. I love Lumen's paintings, and so in her case, I know that she starts her process is to kind of start with an impression of something that she has observed, and then she works works with that material kind of through a lens of diffusion. So she's kind of breaking things apart or pulling things apart, and kind of heightening the abstraction of the subject she's working with, kind of to the point of you can't really tell what possibly the representational thing that she began with was. On the left image, garden, that's more legible as, you know, this is some form of garden. Um, but the image on the right, I find really it kind of comes and goes. It comes like in and out of, you know, the scale, the relationships of things. It could be a mountain, it could be microscopic. It just has these really unusual and almost unreadable qualities to it. And I also think that there are these vignettes of painted um, paint handling, paint strokes that are these really great little abstractions in and of themselves in her work, which are kind of these moments that where you kind of your focus comes into clarity on just the brushwork, but then again the overall image remains abstract. And I feel like these paintings really speak to the time as well, and a shifting sense of time and perspective, and also that, you know, there can be beauty in the unknown. I find that these works really, um, you know, visually you're searching in them. You want to identify something, you want to hold on to something, and it kind of slips away. And I find that, you know, this kind of inscrutable quality of them speaks to kind of the times we're going through, where you want to make sense out of something, but it remains elusive. And but that there's beauty in that you can kind of be okay be okay with the
Yeah,
fact that you can't quite figure
uncertainty.
it out.
Yeah, no, that's really eloquent. And you know, you started off by saying impression, and they are very impressionistic to me. And you can like go in and out of the work and find new things as your eye moves around. So they do sort of fit great with the wild tangent for the viewer as well as for the artist. You can just wind your way through. Yeah.
And I think this was, you know, part of her own way of coping and processing, you know, with lockdown. She has two little children, and I think spent a lot of time with them, but also, you know, just I know she has a garden. I know that she did some traveling, so I'm sure this was like kind of processing things as the year unfolded as well.
Yeah,
So
nice. Well, cool. Thanks for sharing those.
yeah.
I'm going to talk about a couple of my artists that are in the show. This is Martin Webb. He's originally from England, but has lived many years in Oakland, and his work is normally about human relationship with nature. But I think these works that he did in 2020 really went further down that path. The one on the left called Visitors, I saw this on his Instagram feed and I thought it would be perfect for the show because he stated it was an actual event that happened to him in Point Reyes, where there were people standing on the beach and these humpback whales came really close to the shore. And I just thought, that moment when you get a glimpse of something in nature so unexpected and so intimate like that, you really pause and you think about what our place is in the universe, and just how it's so magical to have like a whale come up close, and he said he could see the eyeballs, like
Oh, wow.
see them looking at the people and the people looking back. And he originally did a piece called Premonition on this subject as a smaller work, and he said he wasn't sure if that was saying anything about 2020, but I just think this wonderful aspect of us becoming more aware of our relationship and our effect on the universe. You see during the time when people traveled less this last year and the air kind of cleaned up, and like I said, more people noticed birds chirping, and it took for humans to step back a little bit to receive the animal world. So I think his painting just really sums that up with the scale, of the humans being so small. Um, and then the one on the right, hunker, uh, is a great word for what we all did this last year.
So true.
And I like that he related it to camping, because you're stuck at home, you're kind of looking at the same four walls all the time, but if you're camping, you're in this beautiful tableau. And so I think it's about your attitude and how you see the lockdown. If you think about it as an opportunity to go within yourself, and like you said, to let go of expectations and try something new. um, I just think the title Hunker is great, and I love his use of pattern. In the forefront, there's like an upside down boat that alludes to future travel and future adventures, but it's up on the shore, so it's not being used, and we're just all kind of in this waiting period, and it feels like just a peaceful place to rest. So maybe for some of us that was an opportunity. And then I wanted to talk about Monica. Says Bryant there, it's hidden by her faces. Um, Monica is in Santa Rosa. She's like a painting teacher most of her life. She's originally from Kansas, and her mom was actually a well-known painter. And she said she kept a lot of files of her mom's like photographs and reference work. And these birds, when she started um, thinking about the theme for Wild Tangents, she thought the birds were a great metaphor for kind of some of the events, not just COVID, but the one on the right here, Speak Up, is a goldfinch. And she said, that was during the protests for George Floyd, and the Black Lives Matter movement, that she sees those little, the pattern in the background as like a song sheet, and the song of the bird is related to our voice and letting that be heard. Um, so her Wild Tangent is sort of creating these characters around these birds, that they have these personalities. She, in her statement, she quotes the Emily Dickinson poem, Hope is a Thing with Feathers. And I just think that's a really neat idea, that these birds are embodying hope. The one on the left, We Are Strong, is a cardinal. She told me that the cardinal is a symbol of confidence. And that if you're feeling low confidence and kind of stressed out and unsure, that often you'll see cardinals, and that will just be a signal to kind of regain your confidence. And
I
uh,
can relate to that.
yeah,
I saw a cardinal today.
yeah. See, I
Um,
mean, there's some things like I see cranes all the time. I don't know what they're trying to tell me, but I think that Monica is hinting that we find the things in nature that we need. Um, and I like this referring back to her mother. And I love that, she uses the original photograph and embellishes it. And it's just, it is hopeful to me. So I found a lot of the work in this show express that faith in nature and resilience, I think is the key word. So
You're right.
yeah. So those are two of the artists in the West Coast show. Um, let's go back and talk about the experience of doing a virtual show versus a physical show. I'm showing here the QR code that you made, which I think you were posting around the neighborhood.
Yeah, as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun idea. We were just trying new things to get people to visit the websites, but you were able to also show the exhibition on walls. So let's talk about a little bit like what we found out while we were doing this process. Um, you had mentioned that organizing a virtual show where you have to get the images, the content, you have to set up a website, you have to organize it in your head first,
Yeah.
really made you kind of think of it strategically. And you made this incredible spreadsheet that we both use with all the
Oh,
timelines and everything. Do you want to say more about that, how that worked for you?
yeah, it seemed a lot different from the other in-person shows I've done in that you really had to get everything ready ahead of time
Mm.
and just all the content. And um, I think too that because most of it would be in a virtual space, it was kind of it was a creative process and like problem solving and trying to figure out, what do people use these days? What are the different platforms? What are the different tools? And figuring out how to use commerce on my website. I hadn't done that before, and making a QR code, and just these different kind of problems that it was fun to solve. And
Yeah.
then also, I just really loved, reconnecting with you and having this connection at a distance, and really finding a purposeful collaboration to do something productive, something that was supportive of other artists during the pandemic, because so many people have been in so much pain. I mean, physically for many, but also just emotionally, and the disruption and the changes that you kind of didn't have a choice about. You just had to work with them, and
Yeah, that was
yeah,
a big part of it for me too, is just to have something to work towards.
yeah,
I think having a project is like a really great way to deal with depression and stress. And I felt it was something, we could do without too much. I mean, we naturally, we built our own websites and we're kind of adept enough to do it without too much stress, I hope.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, to give us something to look forward to, and the artists participating. I also wanted it as a way just to raise awareness for the artists,
yeah.
because there are no gallery shows, no other opportunities. If you at least get people talking about something online, it was a marketing approach. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we also we use Jotform to accept the submissions, right? So that was kind of a new thing. And
New
then
and useful.
yeah, so we learned a few things. um, Also, the second point here, that we got to approach new artists that maybe we had some crushes on, or that we'd seen their work. And um, I added, yeah, a couple of people that hadn't had, most of the artists I had relationships with already, but there were a couple of new ones that I was like, oh, I'll just ask them, see if they want to do it. And they were super excited. So is that what you
Same,
did too?
same. Yes, I also approached a couple new people that I didn't know at all, other than their work on Instagram, and they both participated in the show, and I thought that their work was really strong in
Hmm.
the show, and it's great to connect with more artists who you think are doing interesting things. And
Yeah, and maybe a little more interesting for you to play the curator, um,
mhm.
and be able to have that perspective, and invite people is kind of a nice feeling to give them that chance and connect. Uh, Another thing was that speaking of connecting, I think we were able to, because of the bi-coastal nature, we were able to get a wider audience, and also being online, you don't have to physically come to the show. So um, our artists and the shows were exposed to more people.
I think that's very true. I've noticed, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 even new followers on Instagram from, promoting the show. And I think the artists in the show also have been gaining a lot more followers.
Yeah, I noticed that our artists were following each other now.
Right?
So
Yeah,
even that great connection, who knows where those things lead to. It's the point of showing up, and doing
right.
something. And we both had a couple of sales for the artists. So we kind of didn't know when we started out if that was even going to be a remote possibility. But we learned that collectors will buy online, and maybe they're becoming more accustomed to that, um, with these virtual shows and online marketplace and stuff. So
Yeah, it's a good sign. And I think hopefully we'll have a couple more before the shows come down, but you never know.
yeah, we forgot to mention that we set up the dates of the show to span the election.
Mhm.
We started with November 5th, and we're going to close right before the inauguration. So that was just kind of a playful way of bridging last year with this year, and hopefully that we would get over. It
I
was kind
know.
of like I imagine it was like throwing a rope over the other side, and
Yes.
hopefully, like,
It's like
yeah,
how we got through it.
like, oh, we're gonna make it to January. So we mentioned we boosted our followings through cross promotion.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think, I would love to do another one. Do you think this is something you'll continue to do?
Yeah, I think I also would love to do another one. It may not be, as quickly as I would like, just some other, events in life, accepting a promotion at my day job, these things.
Yeah.
Um, but it was really fun, and I learned a lot. And I learned a lot. I got more in depth with artists' processes and how they were working during COVID, and things that they were kind of doing to get through it that were new. And I just felt like the learning aspect and the connecting aspect were so special that I would love to do this again. Don't know exactly what form it'll take, but yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
really fun to work with you and to do it too. So
Oh, good. Well, let's do it again.
yeah, maybe we can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm watching a lot of museums and galleries and stuff kind of experiment, and I think there's even more opportunity to try some fun things, 3D tours or virtual reality. I don't know what the future is, but I think that it's definitely shown us that we can figure out a way to make it through. Artists are really resilient, and I feel like they've contributed a lot to society during this whole pandemic. The graffiti and the murals in San Francisco have just cheered me up so much, and I
in
think,
New York as well.
yeah, it's been a big sign of hope. So let's just remind everyone. So it's up till the 23rd. These are all the artists in both shows, and we have, a little bit about each artist on the website. So yeah, and I'm gonna do a couple more of these like Zoom calls, I think, with a couple of the artists before we close, and those will be up on the site too. So thank you so much, Caetlynn, for working with me on this and talking with me tonight.
You,
And
Anne. It's been
yeah,
great. I've really enjoyed the whole process with you. And yeah, we'll see what 2021 holds.
oh my gosh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.